What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another episode of The Kingdom Says. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams, and I am joined with my two usual co-hosts back in action. We've got Kyle Henning on the top right. How are we doing tonight, Kyle?
A little better than we were the other day, but not tons. We're still here, though. We're ready to get ready for the Vikings, so we're rolling.
We are. Yes, sir. And then, of course, Arrowhead Tom on the bottom of the screen. How we doing, Tom?
Good. I am. We were talking about it before the game. I'm not sure how to feel about this Vikings game, so I'm like, it's like a weird indifference. But I'm ready for it. I'm ready for. It's been a long week. I'm ready for football and junk food and just chilling. That's what I'm ready for.
I am ready for some chilling. Unfortunately, this Vikings game, I cannot promise there's going to be a lot of chilling out of Chiefs fans this game. The Chiefs are playing the Vikings at home in Minnesota this Sunday. Is a 3:25 Arrowhead time game. I believe it's pretty much nationally broadcast on CBS. I think it's CBS's main game. The Chiefs are going to Minnesota. TBD on if Taylor Swift's going to be there yet or not. We will see, of course. Exactly. Right. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see Tom's awesome background with Taylor in attendance.
She's got to be there. I need a new screen for next week. So.
Exactly. We need to change that weekly picture. We're also 2-0 with her in the games. I'm not saying there's a correlation. I'm just saying.
So if she doesn't show up and the Chiefs somehow lose to the Vikings, do we ban her? Do we wage war on the Swifties?
No, we tell her, please come back. We beg her to come back.
Ooh, maybe we could write a song.
Oh, I'm out on that. You don't want me participating in that part of the program. I am not a musical
sure she's got
human.
A song.
I said I'm not a musical human. Y'all can write up I'm not a musical person. Right. Y'all can tackle that.
Right. So we've got the contingency plan down.
We have plans. All right.
This
Vikings game, it's going to be a very interesting game. The Vikings are 1-3 on the season. They've lost all their games only by one score though. And as a fan who has watched a lot of Vikings games via my mom, shout out my mom. She is a Vikings fan from Minnesota. Yep. And she has had some suffering so far this year, I can tell you what. And I have been witness to it. Vikings are a very stacked team on paper. I mean, you would think this team is NFC championship bound, easy peasy, especially with how the NFC looks. And then you watch some of their games, and it's like, oof, what is going on over here? I mean, it is
familiar.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
We know the team in our division like that.
Yeah.
The Vikings are the Chargers of the NFC.
Yeah, they're exactly the Chargers. In fact, they played the Chargers in Week 3, and both of those teams were trying so hard to lose the game.
Lose that football.
It was actually crazy. It's like it was really a competition of how can you lose but also look like you were trying to win, and they did both of that. So
it was
impressive.
It was the Plaxico Burress shoot yourself in the foot.
It's like, what can we do to just lose but look okay? And they didn't. So it's an interesting existence as a Vikings fan these days. Obviously, they have Justin Jefferson there, who probably arguably the best receiver in the NFL right now.
He's also frustrated.
It's interesting how they've used him so far, how the offense has kind of rolled. He's had some big games. Let's not get it twisted, but it's tough when.
Some of this, and let's do this quickly at the beginning of this because this is going to be the key. The injury report is full, guys. They've got 3 guys resting. They got Harrison Smith, Brian O'Neill, and Jordan Hicks that are all just out. Didn't practice on Wednesday for rest purposes. They all practiced. It looks like Thursday, good to go. No biggie there, right? Okay, cool. Brian Asamoah, their linebacker, he's limited both days with a toe. Garrett Bradbury, which I believe is their
great name.
Center?
Their center.
He's their starting center, isn't he? Yeah.
Yep.
He's had some back things. He was limited on Wednesday, full on Thursday, but it's a back issue, and I don't know that playing Chris Jones with a bad back is all that much fun.
I tell you what, if I had to play Chris Jones, my back would start hurting more.
I was going to say.
I'm just like, no, coach, I can't.
Coach,
I can't. You don't want me out there.
Please.
Was he last year's draft or the draft year before? I don't remember. Lewis Sign is on here with a hamstring. He was limited both days.
He's been kind of in the league so far.
Marcus Davenport also limited both days with an ankle
that was a good
injury.
pickup for them, but he's limited. So.
And then Josh Matulis, which is another safety, has been limited both days with a shoulder. And Nick Mullins, which is their backup quarterback, was limited with a back on both days.
Mm-hmm.
So
mm-hmm.
that's
there,
interesting. Side note,
yeah,
I don't know why
especially-
Nick's got a back issue as the backup, but that's kind of crappy for him.
Backup has the back issue. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Now, an interesting note on the Chiefs injury report, since we're just rolling through injury
I was
reports.
gonna say, let's get to the Chiefs and see what they're looking like.
Matt Dickerson has not participated this week with a knee. That would, to me, lean towards potentially Mr. Farrell Jr. getting an activation this week if
Or
Dickerson's
Keandre
not
Coburn,
practicing,
maybe.
or Keandre Coburn, also an option.
Like to
They
see
just
my boy
seem to be
Keandre.
flipping back and forth between Dickerson and Neal, and Farrell Jr. at this point. So,
which is okay. I'm sure the big guys like a little bit of rest.
So Jalen Watson was limited and then full with a shoulder. Nick Bolton was limited both days with an ankle, which that's not great.
Yeah.
That's a bigger back in Alexander Madison. Guys, we would like Nick Bolton for this game if he's available. Although, again, I don't necessarily need to rush him back if he's not available. So
yeah, we might survive this week without him.
Jack Cochran, full participant both days with a calf.
Oh, thank God. I was worried about what we'd do without Jack.
Hey, man. He's
my boy Jack.
He plays all 4 phases of special teams. So that
right,
I know that we don't accumulate a whole lot of value in that, but especially how many times do we see teams lose games because of special teams? I mean,
the Vikings do it a lot. I can tell you.
Kadarius Toney's kick return last year. Ring a bell? Anybody? Special teams?
I don't remember that one actually. I don't know. I'm just playing. The Vikings do like to lose via everything actually.
Yes, and that's the other thing is the Vikings like to do wild things on there, and so special teams tends to factor in there. Chris Jones was a full participant both days with a growing, so that's good.
Yeah, we know he's got a groin. We saw him at the combine.
Yeah, well, we saw that he did apparently strain it or something last week a little.
Not the groin.
He wasn't happy about it. Or it wasn't happy. George has been on there both days, full participant with a little bit of a knee, looks like. Legarius, full participant both days with a knee. That one's going to be there all season, I have a feeling. Kadarius, full participant both days with that toe. We'll see if they get him more involved because he was not nearly snap count involved last week.
Oh, yeah. Can just see more of him.
And then Drew Tranquil was a full participant both days with a wrist. So that's both of your middle linebackers really on that injury report, which doesn't make me thrilled.
Leo Schnallauer.
And then Wanye Morris showed up today, limited, with a hip issue.
Which is your backup swing tackle, basically. So
And the guy that you brought up to replace Prince Tegawanoga on the roster while you put him on IR.
Yeah.
So,
that's
not exactly a healthy team on either side in both of these categories. Now, a lot of full participants there, but some of those aren't ideal.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how the injuries end up playing a factor. But yeah, getting into the game here, I think it's going to be like I kind of talked about in the intro. The Vikings super stacked team on paper. So you look at their offense. They have Kirk Cousins, who is the type of quarterback that you either win with or you lose by it. But super calculated quarterback, likes to take care of the ball, likes to protect the ball. They'll do some funny stuff every once in a while, but he can sling it. That is the big thing. Kirk Cousins has a lot of throws in his bag, and he's obviously a very seasoned quarterback. He's had some good time in this new scheme with Kevin O'Connell, and he's obviously got some great targets in Justin Jefferson. You got T.J. Hawkinson over there at tight end, Jordan Addison, the rookie, who is looking really good so far in his limited usage there. KJ Osborne gets some work. Yeah, they've got a very nice offense. Their offensive line isn't the greatest. I know they've had some injuries along that.
Yes, they've come a long way though.
But they have. I know their offensive line has been dealing with some injuries. I know we talked about Garrett Bradbury. I think whoever there's Rashawn. No, not Rashawn's player. The other Christian Darrisaw. He was. He's been kind of up and down this year with injuries, I do believe. Yeah. So.
And
what are we thinking
about Cousins? I mean, to Garrett's point about Cousins, I'll give you a stat line. They're 1-3, but I'll give you his numbers for the year. He's played 4 games. He's 108 of 157 for a 68.8 completion percentage, 1,200 yards, 303 yards a game, and 104.4 rating in those games.
Yeah, like he has been slinging it this year. It's just
now
once they get into the red zone, they kind of stall out a little bit.
numbers can be misleading in some things because some of that has been in some different situations, but they also haven't been playing in blowout games. Most of these have been one-score affairs. Like all of them technically have been one-score affairs. Even the game they won last week against Carolina was only by 8. So he's not playing terribly. The 4 interceptions, though, are probably in more of the more critical moments of the evenings, or days, which is why that's been a problem.
Yeah.
Then they've also, and here's the thing that I think is their biggest problem: they don't have a running game right now. That's their issue.
Yeah, they're really missing Dalvin Cook.
It's if only they had if only there was a Pro Bowl kind of really talented running back who would listen. So Kirk Cousins, this is so hard because
the numbers look fine, but they always look fine. And then it's Kirk Cousins when you watch him play. It's like I don't know what happened.
Yeah, the numbers can be one thing, but you watch him play, and this is where you talk about the tiers of quarterback, right? Like the levels of quarterback. And Kirk Cousins, right or
has
wrong,
his own tier. There's a tier for Kirk Cousins on everybody's tier sheet now. That's just Kirk Cousins and a bunch of his clones.
He's kind of become what is the line in is it the Mendoza line in baseball?
Yeah, pretty much. He is the median.
Yeah. So Kirk Cousins is okay.
Are you Kirk Cousins? You can play for 10 years.
Yeah, but Kirk Cousins is going to need the 2000 Baltimore Ravens defense to drag him to a Super Bowl. I mean that's Kirk is a cool guy.
Great guy.
The quarterback documentary was really nice. It was an interesting insight. Maybe when
you talk about guys who have it on the field, and it's almost a different speed. I think it's hard to. It's that intangible element of it.
His decision making points is
creating. Weird. I don't think Kirk creates off script. He doesn't process. He processes plenty fast. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and be oh yeah, I could totally do that because put me one drop back in the NFL and I'd just cry for the rest of my life that. Please don't.
Most people don't realize that what the speed at which you'd have to process those things to do the things that these guys do. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's 2.4 seconds. I can't stand up out of my chair in under 3. So I'm in trouble.
What are we supposed to do?
I spend an average of 4 minutes in line at the McDonald's drive.
The thing with Kirk and Tom is on it. It's he just sometimes his decision making is just that. But he is a guy that if you put a bunch of talent around, which they have, you can win games with. This is a team. This is going to be a football game. I don't expect it to not be. I just expect the Vikings to Viking at some point.
Especially with having Kevin O'Connell there now. Kevin O'Connell's a pretty good play caller, and I think especially in the second year, he can really. I think once you a full year with the guy, you kind of know his strengths and weaknesses, and he can.
There were some questions about Kevin O'Connell good at the beginning. There were some questions as a head coach. Yeah. And we've seen him grow and develop, and he's become a much better head coach. He was always a pretty good play caller, as Garrett mentioned. The play calling's not really ever been the problem. And figuring out what the mesh point was between Kirk and him was the deal. But he had some head coaching questions. He's been a better head coach. They just aren't winning games, which is
it's still
rough.
Some of those nitty gritty things of being a head coach and the clutch situations haven't quite hit yet. But there is some fire there. There is obviously. With Justin Jefferson there's a lot of desire to be good and a lot of expectation to be good. So
Jordan Addison is no slouch as a wide receiver. He may be a rookie, but the kid has talent.
Yeah, he's really good, especially because he's from the USC.
Garrett loves him a lot. I got to see him a lot when I didn't want to see him while he was at USC. Yeah. But yeah, he's a solid wide receiver, and they still have KJ Osborne, who's been a little bit down this year, but compared to normal stuff, but he's a good wide receiver
guy for them now, which is huge
and they have TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, who's also really good still. TJ Hawkinson is definitely still a top 7 guy. Tight end.
He's still fine, and they're still getting plenty out of him. I think he's second on the team in receiving this year. So
he's been one of the more safer options for Kirk in this offense this year.
So that matchup with Drew Tranquill and the safeties with TJ is going to be an interesting one to watch for this defense.
I actually have a lot of confidence in that part of the defense.
I'm really excited to watch this game from our defense's perspective because we're going to get to see exactly what these corners and this secondary looks like against a really solid wide receiver group with a decent quarterback. He's not great. He's not elite. He's decent.
Well, I mean, Justin Jefferson is a top.
I'm talking
3.
about Kirk. I'm talking about Kirk
No, I'm
Cousins.
saying though,
not
like
being
that
Yeah.
matchup.
No, having Justin is clutch.
I think that's. I'm trying to think of probably the best receiver they've faced so far this year.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I don't even think
he's
that's a
unique
question.
Talent. Yeah, unique talent. I only said it because they haven't played Jamar Chase or anybody.
Yeah, but so far this year, they've Garrett Wilson's good, but he's not Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, they're going to see
I might
Tyreek. They're
put
going to
Justin
see.
at 1 right now. So
Yeah,
as far as
they're going to see the other 2 guys who I think would be in the conversation, like 1, 2, 3, and I don't.
Yeah,
it's kind of
you're going to see them all.
Yeah, you're going to see Tyreek. You're going to see Jamar.
It'll be the first of the gauntlet for the DBs to kind of tackle. But I think the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to from the defense is how the D line bounces back, especially with this kind of weakened Vikings O line. And Kirk is, like I said, Kirk is pretty good about not taking sacks and trying to get rid of the ball. Now that might end up with some bad decisions sometimes.
He's got 10 already this year.
Yeah,
I think,
but I kind of compare him a lot to Jared Goff in the way that he doesn't want to get sacked, and he's going to be very quick with getting the ball out.
100%.
For better or for worse.
See, I would. This is where it's like where you talk about like Kirk Cousins as a quarterback. I think Jared Goff has more just talent as a whole and has started to put more of the mental. Like Kirk is a very cerebral quarterback, and I just don't think he's always had the talent to back that up. And then I think the other thing is like if you get him out of rhythm, he fall. I mean,
he does kind of
under pressure because he's got some moments where he's risen to the occasion, but those are few and far between, right? Like if you're betting on that, then yeah.
Here's my question then, because we watched them play a offensive line last week that was supposed to be fairly and depleted, and they got a bunch of pressure, but they never really got home. Now, unfortunately, George missed a couple that I thought he probably should have had. Chris got home on one, but like. They really only got 1 sack and a bunch of pressures on an offensive line that we thought they were going to pretty much control.
Mm-hmm.
This Minnesota line is a little banged up. I think they're probably starting spot was a little higher than the Jets are currently. So what do we see this week with this defensive line against that front from your?
I mean, they got to finish. I mean, that's like you said. Like George, I think missed 2 sacks. I mean, like had a guy in his arms.
He had Zach Wilson twice. Done.
Yeah. And those. I mean, that's like. A sack is a big deal, for a lot of reasons. You lose yards, you take away down. Like that's a pretty big thing. You've got to finish those plays.
And I think one of those ended up being a touchdown.
Yeah, and I think
or a first down that led to a touchdown. One of the 2.
It is, and we noticed this in the what was the game? The Jacksonville game. I don't know. It seems like the defense is just they're going full speed a lot, and I think they just gotta let them pacing because it seems like they're getting gassed a little bit later. Like the Jets game at the end, like it just felt like they were worn out. I mean, I think both sides were. I think it was. I mean, it was a tough game, so I can't really blame anyone in that sense. But I wonder if the team as a whole can find a better pacing, but especially on defense, to like, all right, let's. Not be gassed in the fourth quarter so we can finish those plays when they matter.
Yeah.
And some of that is just also the rotation of guys. The defensive line has a lot of flavors on it, but in terms of guys who are going to actually, George is seeing a lot of snaps.
I mentioned it on Tuesday. They've seemed to establish a rotation for the DNs essentially, where you're getting George and Dana together and Malik and Felix together as the pairings when they roll them out there. You're not getting a lot of mixture in that. Very rarely do you see George and Felix on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
Or
and like I said, that's just it's. Yeah, Garrett, I think that's something that is figuring it out.
You mentioned Darisaw earlier.
Yeah.
What up and down in what way? What's he been struggling with? What's his problem?
Injuries I think he's had a little bit of an injury bug this year. And obviously that affects your play even when he's technically healthy and he's on the field. He hasn't looked as sharp as that, his former first rounder. He had a decent year last year. And I think just the injuries have kind of taken a toll on him this year, which is not the week that you want to be having that with the likes of Chris Jones and George Karlaftis lining up out there.
And I specifically asked that because he's their left tackle. So for those that don't know, that the Vikings go left to right Darisaw, Ezra Cleveland at guard, Garrett Bradbury, who we mentioned with the back problem on the injury report earlier, as their center. Ed Ingram is their right guard, and Brian O'Neill, who I mentioned was a rest earlier on Wednesday, and then practiced, of course, fully Thursday because he's a vet. Is their right tackle. So
yeah, honestly, if I'm looking for a matchup if I'm looking for a matchup to exploit with Chris Jones on Sunday, I'm looking at Ed Ingram for sure. He's kind of their he's got a lot of penalties drawn on him so far this year. That's one thing, and then he's just definitely the weaker point of that offensive line so far. So if I'm Chris, I'm finding Ed Ingram as much as I can and going after him and letting George take Mr. Darisaw on the outside there.
Is that a matchup you like with George? Because I don't know Darisaw against Power very well with what injuries he's had. Is it an ankle?
Yeah,
is it a leg? What is it?
I'm not sure exactly. I just have seen him. Let me try to do a little research. I've seen him. He's missed some.
I'll let you look that up, and we can
he
back to that.
Dealt with injuries even when he was going back to what school? I think he was Virginia. Whatever tackle. No, it wasn't Virginia. It was where did he go to school at?
I got you.
Was it West Virginia? It was a weird school, but he went to school.
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. I knew it. You were right. You were the state.
Yeah. He dealt with some of those, and I think if I remember, there was a lot of lower body ones. And he's very much an up and down. Like, has a lot of talent. Hasn't always put it all together. I would say you could compare him very similarly, not necessarily skill wise, but like career path so far to what they saw last week with Mekhi Becton at left tackle, with the Jets. Super talented, but
ankle is what he was dealing with this year a little bit, and a concussion.
Power rushing against the guy with an ankle is usually a good idea because they don't like having to plant that ankle in the ground.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain he's had ankle issues in the past. I
think I was looking through it. He had a groin injury coming out of college. A pretty serious groin injury, and then this year he dealt with a concussion and an ankle. So if I do feel pretty confident in George on that matchup, despite him. I mean, Darisaw is still a good tackle, and he's more of a power guy than finesse. But I think in the grand scheme of matchups, Karlaftis might have a good shot against him. So
Tom, you lit up when we said Brian O'Neill at right tackle. What was that thought?
So Brian O'Neill's a good tackle, but he is a little bit more light on his feet. He's a little bit more.
He is lighter.
He's a guy who you kind of get out in space and do some of those things with.
He's tall, 6'7", 310.
Very tall. So I would actually watch that matchup with Mike Dana, because Mike Dana might get under those pads and be a nightmare for him.
That's a low guy wins right there. I mean,
that might be fun.
It'll be an interesting matchup. And again, this is I think they're much improved from the last time the Chiefs saw the Vikings, but like in terms of the offensive line.
Yeah.
But I think it's
so
there's definitely
correctly. The last time Chris Jones played the Vikings, he had a pretty good game. I want to say that was the game he had pretty good time at.
So there's one guy that we haven't talked about that I really want to talk about, because I think his presence on first and second down will be interesting in this game because of the Bradbury conversation and what Garrett mentioned about their right guard being some of their weaker point. Derek Nottie could play a factor in this game, especially in the run game, if they're going to try to run a lot on first and second down. He's been very good. We talked about it on Tuesday. He's been good again this year, considerably improved over what was a very uncharacteristically bad year for him last year. He hasn't been bad in the past. He just had a bad year last year. So he's been much better again this year, and he's been noticeable, and I'm making a presence, and I look for him to make somewhat of more of a presence again this week with that little bit of a banged up, questionable interior for the Vikings O-line. So that was my only tidbit on the D-line O-line matchup from that side.
Yeah, I do see that. Overall, I think key to beating the offense for the Vikings is getting to Kirk, getting him kind of worked up, getting him uncomfortable. If you let Kirk get comfortable, he can go on you.
He's the
another
guy
big
that likes to
factor-
throw it short of the sticks, though, right? So if you get him in third and
Yeah,
long, he's consistently short of the
check down.
sticks.
He is kind of a check down king. He is very conservative. I mean, he will air it out too, but he will.
Yeah,
be a
I
little
just remember for
conservative
some reason I remember a chart or something from last year with the third down, like where you throw the average depth of target for third downs and with all the quarterbacks listed, because they always do that chart with Mahomes where he's like, always basically throwing at the stick, and then there's all the other guys. Kirk was always 4 or 5 yards short of the sticks on average traditionally,
Yeah.
if I remember right. So
he
get
is-
him in long yardage and then make
Right.
him make decisions on third down.
Yeah,
That's
if you get one
the
sack
goal.
on a drive, that backs him that second
Or a
third
stuffed run
15,
play.
Yeah,
And it's
like
third and 10, and now you're whoa, now what? How many plays are in the playbook for Kurt on third and 10 when the defense gets to pin their ears back and find their best matchups that we just spent the whole 10 minutes of this conversation talking about? So
yeah. Before we hop over to the other side, one last note: the Vikings have struggled with fumbles this year as well. If you're betting on
another
team,
Trent day,
exactly. If you're betting, if you can find like a fumbles or just any kind of turnover line, if you're in sports gambling, that one would be looking into because
Kirk is averaging a pick a game, guys.
Yeah, that one as well. I would bet on a turnover or two happening for sure. So yeah, all that being said, I think the defense will have a good day. Hopefully, we see that same kind of day out of the offense.
I'll be a lot more confident if Nick Bolton is healthy and playing about the defense having a great day because they'll be able to feel. I'll be more comfortable about their run defense. I'm not completely concerned about the Vikings run game, but they do have two guys that at least can run the football if they're given the room to. Alexander Madison has done it before, and Cam Akers can do it.
I'm gonna lie, Alexander Madison has been a little uninspiring this year.
He has been this year, but we've seen him in years past get plenty of yardage on teams that don't do what they need to in the run game.
He gets some yardage.
I don't want to see this team go down that route.
He kind of reminds me of Clyde like 2 years ago, where it's like not much juice there, but you can see, you can see where you might think so, but still gotta be prepared for him. I mean, he has the potential to maybe.
Akers out of the backfield is what I'm more concerned about in the passing game.
Yeah, they just got Akers. They used him a little bit last year last week in this first game. Who knows how much he'll really get elevated. He is familiar with Kevin O'Connell's system because he was in LA. So yep, that is one of those things. Hopping over to the offensive side of the ball, where we hope to see some vast improvements from last week.
This is still
we're going in against the Vikings defense. Not a super intimidating defense. They got Daniil Hunter over there, who is a dog. He is really good. Besides that, there's not a ton to be scared of, really. Harrison Phillips is an okay nose tackle.
Harrison Smith is still a good safety. Don't make mistakes near him.
Harrison Smith is still really good. He's a really good safety.
Now. I love Harrison. We're at the back half.
Yeah,
we're in the back
like 33.
We're on the back 9.
39,000
He's older. He's also been very good for a very long time. But we're starting to get. He's 34 as a safety.
He's not going to have quite older. He's got the knowledge still. He's got the IQ, but
I didn't mention the other part where he's white for the most part.
Yeah, maybe the best white safety of all time.
White
DB.
Jason Sehorn's around. There's some other guys, but there's some. It's rare, especially to see him in his checks notes. What is 12th. That? 14th year, 12th year?
14th, maybe. Yeah, I might have read that wrong.
12th year. No, 12th year. You're right. Yep. I misread it. I didn't have my glasses on.
Riley Moss exists. Cooper DeJean next year. Listen, the white cornerback.
I'm not saying, but Harrison doing what he's doing is impressive.
And
also, though,
he actually might
on
be
the back
best.
9.
Yeah, he might be the best white DB of all time.
Maybe he's in the conversation. He's on the back 9. He's probably lost a little bit of a step. Not completely.
The rest of their secondary
not fully out.
Too intimidating either. I mean, they have
Byron Murphy decided to open his mouth, which was a decision.
Open his mouth. Yeah, that was an interesting one. We know how
we're going to talk about that.
Yeah,
we're talking about that at some point.
Other than that, though, really nothing too crazy from the defense. They have a rookie undrafted linebacker, Ivan Pace Jr., who is actually really good. He's an off-ball guy, but he rushes the passer. He leads rookies in passer or in pass rush rating, I do believe. and was also like second in the league period in like pass rush stats.
Somebody to keep an eye on.
He's actually the second highest graded PFF linebacker so far this season behind Roquan Smith.
Am I seeing correctly that they have Cam Bynum as their starting safety right now?
Yes, Cam Bynum is their starting safety.
Hold on, I want to talk about Ivan Pace just because he was a Cincinnati kid, like
he was
undersized, undersized, but
he was fun.
Like the definition of the dog, right? Of having that dog in him, because
crazy he went undrafted.
Football player.
I remember him. Trust me,
he went undrafted, but he didn't test well. He went undrafted.
We dealt with him. Notre Dame fan. We dealt with him. They beat us. He had a huge game.
He's everywhere.
Huge game. He's all over the field.
And watching some of his snaps against NFL linemen this year, it's like, man, this kid's gonna be playing in the league for a while. You know.
Yeah, he definitely would play. Surprise me if he sticks.
Yeah. So
they got him starting, so I don't. It's not. He's probably sitting. He's gonna roll for a while. He's like I said, he was impressive at Cincinnati. He jumped off the screen just when I was fan watching the Notre Dame Cincinnati game, and I was like, "Yo, who is that kid?"
Yeah, who's wearing number
0? I had to go back
and
watch him.
Yeah,
and man, he's fun to watch.
He's the one that had the neck roll, right? Or am I making?
I think so.
Up?
He did have a little.
Do you know if he still has the neck roll in the NFL? Because that would be.
That's a great question.
That's an elite look if he does, because very few neck rolls rolling around in the NFL.
Pictures. He is not rocking the neck roll. Oh wait, no, he still has a neck roll on one of these.
Right. There we go.
I can't not root for a linebacker.
Doesn't look like week 1 he did, but week 2.
Who needs a neck roll? Leo Chenal. Let's start
Leo could rock a neck
not
roll.
have one. Yeah, that is.
Oh yeah.
That is built for Leo right there.
That's an eat glass kind of guy. That's a neck roll guy.
Eat glass, kick ass.
How are we feeling this week about the offense against a lesser defense than I think the Jets for sure? So that's something, because the Jets sneakily have a pretty good defense.
Oh yeah, they just have a really good defense. They have one of the best corners in the game.
The only reason they haven't been a good defense most of the season is because they've been on the field the whole game.
Right, because Zach
Wilson played
30-yard fields
out of his mind, and all of a sudden that defense was good. It's crazy. Also, this is the second time they've done this to a team that they were supposed to get pounded by from the offense once their quarterback went down. They did it to Josh Allen, and they did it a lot worse.
Yeah.
So they beat Josh Allen, and he had, I think, 4 turnovers that game.
Now, so.
Yeah.
So the Jets aren't a bad defense. They just were on the field too dang much.
I will say, and we talked about this pregame, and this is probably or pre-recording. This will probably be a big part of this conversation. I tweeted it out. A lot of conversation about 1, do the Chiefs have guys on this roster who can beat man? 2, is Patrick Mahomes comfortable throwing to those guys when they beat those man matchups? And 3, are they going to call the plays to put guys in position to be beating man coverage? Because
you just covered what I'm watching on this game, because that's those the questions we don't have answers to.
See that. Yeah.
I went back and watched. I went back.
I just want to get this out because I think we're going to talk about it, and then I'll let you go, Kyle. It may be one of the early season things where, as much as it's a gamemanship, right? We don't want to put everything on tape right now, especially some of those man beating plays, because those are, especially for a Chiefs offense, those are going to be pretty crucial, like down the stretch. But at the same time, I want to know that you can do it.
Right. So that's my biggest problem with the whole game plan from basically what we watched last week. When I went back and watched it, is a ton of those play calls were. I made the comparison in the pre-show of like one of those plays they ran. I've seen on the front play screen of Madden on every playbook in every offense since like 1998. It's 2 stop routes, a crosser with your tight end, and a go ball down the outside.
No, one option basically.
It's one option, especially when you put Sky Moore running the go ball against Sauce Gardner. It was littered with stuff like that all through it. And then what Tom just mentioned was, can they beat man? Yeah, some of these guys can. The question is the second part of that was then, will he throw it to them when they do? Because they've got guys that can do it. Are they using him as much as they should or in the positions they should? That's, again, the question with the play calling that I had from last week and the snap counts that we talked about, because they were way low for some guys that beat man. Like, I don't know, Kadarius Toney and Rashee Rice.
I get that because he's still coming back. Rashee should be,
Look,
Inject Rashee Rice into my veins.
Sky Moore
Needs
is
more
not a man-beating receiver right now. He's just not right now. He may be. Eventually, he may be able to develop into it, but what I'm seeing right now, not so much. If you're going to throw to him in man, it's going to be contested catch more often than not. And Patrick doesn't traditionally do that.
Andy doesn't traditionally do that. And also, I mean, I don't want to start the Sky slander, but I'm just going to say it. Like, he's still young. He's still a young player, and he has to, like, his play strength isn't there. You in those contested catch situations, more often than not, he's got great hands. He understands leverage. He's got great releases. There's so many things about his game that you could love, that coaches will put on film and go, this is how you do this.
Right.
But this is the NFL, and
Correct.
You have to be able to understanding positioning. Isn't the same as being able to get into that position, in the sense of, trying to catch a ball in a contested catch situation. And Sky has not shown that same, kind of tendency to muscle his way into those situations.
What he has done is do some of the things the Chiefs really like to ask their receivers to do. He blocks pretty well, takes care of his assignments. He's not been in the wrong spot. He's just not necessarily open.
Yeah, sometimes he's in the wrong spot.
Now, he was on the third down where Patrick was like, hey, you have to come back to that football so you can get it, because that's a first down if you do. And those are things that he's still working on. Also, we haven't seen Rashee in some of those situations, so we don't know if that's
true. I'm a little worried about.
In the stuff we've seen with Rashee, other than his guaranteed start the game drop, which I wish
he's
we
going
could
to drop one. Yeah.
Go ahead and get it out of the way early. Put it in the first 15 after you've got it to like second and 1, and then just doink him in the hands with it, and then get the first down with your Pacheco under center run play and be done with it.
I'm a little worried about Sky Moore, honestly. I'm a little worried about Sky Moore. I'm worried mostly because of Andy Reid and the team. I'm worried that they might hold on to him a little too long, like they did Mecole Hardman, and then he just kind of never develops. I hope he does. I sure hope he does.
But I still think traditional trajectory for wide receivers in this offense is more than 14 games or 18 games or whatever it is.
It is. So. You're very right about that, but I still have a little bit of worry there, especially with how they've been using him this year and how he's looked so far. He can improve.
I agree. There's definitely room for improvement. We are not on the different pages about that.
This just has all the makings of a Chiefs too loyal to a guy when it's a little too late to get back to him.
He's been here a year.
I know, but I'm just saying.
So I'm telling you, you're early. Is what I'm telling you.
I'm saying I know I'm early, but I'm just saying there's just a little bit.
I mean, you're not right.
A little bit. All right, just a little bit.
Let me split the difference here on Sky Moore, because I would be lying if I said
I like Sky Moore. I do like Sky Moore.
I'll say it this way. I like the Sky Moore pick more than I like the Mecole Hardman pick.
I loved the Sky Moore pick way more than me.
I also like Sky Moore against zone coverage more than I like him against man coverage, but we haven't been seeing the personnel adjustments.
I kind of like that.
Well, and here's the thing. So I think Sky has been put into a weird position because of the depth chart, because Sky is a guy that you want to be able to move in motion. You want to be able to get him, like I said, that we talk about the physical strength element. You want to be able to get him some clean releases, and avoid those press situations. He could beat press, like don't get me wrong, but you want to get him in motion, get him moving, that kind of thing. He's not a deep threat in that true sense, but he's a guy he is a possession slot
get it at
guy,
15, right? Take it to 35 or 40.
Yeah,
get it at 7, take it to 20 yards. Like he can, and he's also not bad in the open field.
Yeah, but one of the things that Andy does with his receivers is you have to be able to play all the positions, and because of the way that they're
using everybody else,
lack of roles in their secondary right now, right? Or I'm sorry, in their receiver room, right? So it's kind of undefined. It's undefined. Kadarius Toney is banged up. Rashee Rice is a rookie. Those kinds of things. I think Sky is being asked to do a little bit more than what he's good at. Like and he can do those things, right? He can be serviceable, and you have a chance that it works for him. But you're not playing to his strength right now.
I think there is definitely a broader reason why Sky isn't succeeding necessarily. I think that kind of applies for the whole wide receiver room. Is just like Tom said, there's just no real roles established right now. Like they're
Matt
really.
Nagy spoke to that in the press conference today. He said flat out in the press conference today, they're still kind of figuring out what they're going to do, what they've got at wide receiver, where they're putting.
We talked about it all off season, where it's like there's so much different type of talent in the wide receiver room. It's like how exactly can you use them all, and they don't. There's so many mouths to feed, and we've seen them try to just feed all of the mouths, and it's kind of hard because there's no one really kind of gets in the motion of being a certain role, of being in a certain thing. They just get rotated everywhere, and it definitely doesn't like promote success for a young wide receiver who's very new to the system still, and isn't the traditional type of receiver you might put in some of those roles.
And you got 4 of them.
Exactly. Like pretty much all of their guys are kind of that like
you've got
before
4 that are either
they're very young,
first year guys.
Yeah, and they're very young. They haven't quite gotten their legs in the league yet. Even Kadarius Toney is still a very young guy who still hasn't quite found a footing. It's just like they need to really establish some roles and get guys more comfortable in the positions they're being put in, because it seems a lot of uncomfortability through that the entire offense.
I think you gotta just let the rookie take his lumps and put Rashee Rice out there on the boundary and let him play.
I agree. While we're at it, maybe add Justin Ross a couple more snaps as well.
I'm less worried about Justin Ross because I think in their offense he's got a very defined role right now.
Yeah, but what if he had a broader role? What if he wasn't just a decoy on tactics?
Yeah, maybe. But I think I will say this. This is where I'm like, okay, the Sky Moore thing I can kind of get, because I've seen, I think, more flashes from Rashee Rice in his
almost certainly,
third or fourth week than I saw of all of Sky, right? Like, and that's not, again, I don't think that's Sky Moore's fault. I think that has to do more with he's being asked to do a lot in his second year compared to what I think they would normally want him to do. And he's not being put in a position where and I think that makes sense a little bit. Like, hey, you're this is your second year. We're going to ask you to do a little bit more, and we're going to, got to bring the rookie along. I think that in a perfect world, they would have had a little bit more of a cushion for him, because again, Andy wants his receivers to be able to do all of it, right? There is an X and a Y and a Z, but he wants you to be able to play, and he wants you to know all the route combinations. And if you I think I've talked about it before, I've seen like a breakdown of this is like from his Philly days of Andy's route combinations and route, it hurt my mind. I was like, we're talking for each position, there's 22, 23, 25 different routes that you can run. And so you think about that, there's 100 different individual routes, and then there's combinations
and they've added in more of that. They've also added in way more in Kansas City of that ability to your routes or option routes out of different looks. You're reading coverage. You're not actually running this exact route. If you get this look after the ball snap, you run this way. If you get this, you run it. There's a lot of these offense.
Even if you think the play is over, it might not be over, and Patrick Mahomes might rocket the ball at you at 106 miles per hour off of 1 foot while he's parallel to the ground. So you better pay attention, kid.
Yeah, it's a lot. For a lot of it
too, I think another thing with Sky, and we've seen it from MVS too. I think really they're the kind of the two more known commodities in the Chiefs' offense, and defenses might kind of be targeting that and realizing that. Because outside of MVS and Sky, I mean, Kadarius Toney, people know what they see when he's actually on the field. But outside of them, the only two real guys you can even have some tape on is MVS and Sky Moore. So I think there might be a little bit of the defenses kind of leaning more in their direction. So we've seen MVS eliminated pretty much every game, and then they're putting good guys on Sky. They don't have sauce on Sky on a go route like that for no reason. It's because he has the potential, and they know it.
And there's another thing that they're doing, the Chiefs are doing, and they've got, and I've seen this mentioned, and it's the correct thing. MVS and Justin Watson are kind of similar in what they do, and they have them both on the field all the time.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna be, I know that they're both the more proven guys because they're the veteran guys and whatnot, but they're the same guy in a lot of ways. They're the slow burn, long, deep guys, take the top move. Like it's not the middle of the field role. I know Travis lives there a lot, but there's got to be other depth to that. You can't just so there's a lot of things they got to figure out with the personnel and the play calling as much as we want to panic about the wide receiver room. I think it's a lot less to do with the receivers themselves at this point and more to do with everybody figuring out how they want to put this together and where they want to use these guys and then getting comfortable and getting in a rhythm. We haven't seen them really in rhythm other than the Bears game.
Yeah, and I really want to see them again put Sky in position to, and I just want to see more of Rice. Like, just feed me all the Rice. I've said it since they drafted him. Like, I think this kid has a legitimate chance to be a dude, and may not be a true wide receiver one, but I think he's going to be one of the more talented receivers that Mahomes has played with so far, just from a physical perspective. And he's
got some similarities in there.
Block. Yeah, like he just.
We talked about it on Tuesday. I know you were unfortunately unable to make that, but he reminds me somewhat of when Sammy was on the field and able to do Sammy things. He's got some similarities there. I've seen Dwayne Bowe comps. I know that's probably more to be making a joke about the drop thing. But he's got a lot of. Dwayne was a dude for a while in Kansas City with bad quarterbacks. So,
in retrospect, Dwayne Bowe in today's game, he would be like we're talking like Michael Thomas. Like
he would eat. Like straight up eat. So I'm fine with that comp as long as we can. Like I said, and I've said this, and I will continue to say this. I don't think the drops stick around either, because every single one of his drops has been a focus thing. It's been I'm trying to run before I catch it, or I didn't finish the route completely because I thought I was supposed to pull it up a little shorter, or because that ball that was third down was behind him a little, like just a little bit of stuff. He's just off a tiny bit.
He struggled with that in college, and he cleaned it up in his last season. I still stand by my, testing wise, his numbers are almost identical to Brandon Ayuk. I think they're a little bit different. I think Brandon's a little bit more explosive, but same kind of idea. Different. Get the ball in his hand and let the kid work. Period.
That I would agree with, because I don't know if you guys have seen what Brandon Ayuk is doing in San Francisco, but I think every catch he has this year, he's either gone for a first down or a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. I saw that stat, stupid stat earlier this week. It was something wild like that.
I swear he had hamstrings.
That dude is also Kyle Shanahan's having a field day with Christian McCaffrey, which we knew he would. But if Christian can stay healthy with him, good lord, man. That
Chiefs fans in me, like the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes fan in me. Like, if it's gonna be someone else to win the MVP this year, I want it to be Christian McCaffrey. I don't need Tua winning it or Josh Allen or anyone else.
I don't know if you saw that last Tua game or not, but I don't know that we're gonna ride that train all the way home.
Yeah. So I might be all aboard the Christian McCaffrey MVP train. Let's see it,
If he can keep it going the whole year, dude, it'd be good to see somebody running back earn that.
Exactly. It'd be
running backs would like to see running backs earn that award. Running backs, let me tell you right now, running backs and their agents would love for Christian McCaffrey to win an MVP.
Yeah, no kidding. So, but the Vikings.
Alvin Cook paid. He's playing third fiddle in the Jets.
The Vikings game, though. So receivers, I want to see more Rashee Rice for sure.
Yes. I think we all agree.
Hopefully just
a reminder not to buy your Rashee Rice jerseys yet, because he's going to switch to number 11 once MVS leaves town.
Nah, he might. 4 is pretty nice, though. I almost think 4 is pretty nice.
He hasn't changed his Twitter handle to RR, 4.
Still 11, I believe.
Pretty sure.
Patrick Mahomes had Patrick Mahomes 5 for like the first 3 years. So
Patrick also knew he wasn't changing his number after his. Because he couldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
It just wouldn't make sense.
He wore 4 in high school.
He should have. I was on board with the 5, but
it is what it is.
I like 15. The one thing we should talk about, the run game, obviously.
Yes.
Since Pacheco had a huge game last week. The offensive line, we talked a little bit. They had an up and down game. The run blocking wasn't bad. Pass blocking was a little bit iffy.
They've had better days, especially that interior.
Yeah, exactly.
Trey had
So
a
hopefully,
couple penalties, and
Creed did not
Cole-
look like he was having fun. Joe had an uncharacteristically off night. It was not a good day in the interior of that offensive line.
yeah, exactly. So we'll see how they kind of bounce back. I'm not sure if we see as run heavy of a game this week, just because let's just air it out, type thing. I
We'll see.
think we might see a little bit of that.
I think they're going to let Pacheco eat a little. I mean,
hope
you
so.
kind of got to
I
feed
really
him,
hope.
don't you?
Listen, I will say this, and we saw this a couple years ago when Kareem was on the team, and the Chiefs were playing in Cleveland, right? Travis, they featured Travis and Kareem that game. There's something about playing in front of your hometown team, right?
Oh, he was juiced.
Yeah, and I think they were leaning into that, especially in a game when they were struggling with the passing. And the Jets are a team that I think, because they were playing so much man, a lot of their secondary was bailing out, and they
turning and running and not.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I could definitely see this being a game that the Vikings allow a little more stuff to happen in the air, and the Chiefs end up taking it because they love. I mean, the Chiefs love passing, so it's like if you're going to give it to us, we're going to take it. But with that being said, Isaiah, he still has that.
He had 150 total yards, I think, didn't he? Because he had like
48, I think.
50 in the air or something, 40
something.
He had
43 in the air, 115 on the ground. So I don't know what that adds up to. 153.
154, I think, but
maybe
all I know is I had him on my fantasy team, and he brought home the dub for me. So thanks.
Huge.
He had a good week. I have him also.
Yeah. So he's as we saw, he's the type of guy, he can spring a hole and go, and he'll just spring a big 50-yard run on you and out of nowhere, even if
that
the
block by
focus isn't really the running game.
Ridiculous.
Huge game.
Anyway, Vikings.
So
I think
the question I have for Tom on the Vikings D line versus the O line. We saw them with all the Jets running 507 different stunts and movements with their D line last week. And that seemed to be a little bit of a issue for the offensive line at points. They got beat on a couple stunts and a couple of those changes. Are we going to see more of that until they show that they fixed it? Or is Minnesota a team that really can do that at this point? With this D-line?
I mean, any team in theory can do it.
But you get what I mean. There's doing it, and then there's doing it successfully.
Yeah, I think the Jets have I'm trying to remember who they've got. I mean, the Bryce Huff kid was just on fire all night, and we talked. So again, we talked about this before the show started. One of the problems this team is having right now, and this is just the mental component of it, is your right tackle has to triple check to make sure he's not screwing up before the play even starts. Even though it's consistently. I mean, it's just been demonstrated. It's consistent across the league. He's not the only player who's doing it, but he is certainly a player that's being targeted, and it feels like he's under a microscope. So we can go on that rant another time, but I think there's a mental component of that where you're just trying to make sure. So yeah, I think that can affect your protections. It seems silly, but that extra second to go, hey, are you lined up right, can be detrimental if you don't.
Takes them out of their rhythm because they haven't been doing that the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So not that it's an excuse. I do think. I mean, Andy Heck knows what he's doing, and he'll have him right and ready to go. But stunts and twists and all that stuff is just one of those communication things. It's easy to see it earlier. Now, if this was later on in the season, I'd be a little more worried. But it's a communication thing. Usually, Creed is, if I remember right, he was the one who's been setting protection since he got here. Yeah. But just being on the same page, especially when they're bringing guys around, because some of that stuff that you don't see till the play starts, and so being able to communicate between guard, tackle, and center, and pick those up it can be tough. So, I think something that gets better as the season improves. May not be perfect this week, but I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, the biggest thing, too, that we haven't really mentioned about this Vikings defense, that I did a little bit of research on while Tom was doing that explanation. One of the blitz-heaviest teams in the NFL by far. They are, so much further ahead of everybody else in terms of blitz percentage. They blitzed Justin Herbert 80% of the time last week. It didn't really work, but they do it a lot, and it might be one of those things. The defense does have some deficiencies, and I believe they do blitz a lot to make up for this deficiencies, especially along that defensive line. Harrison Smith they've used him a lot as a blitzer this year, and he's been pretty good at it.
That means that communication is going to be super important if they're going to be bringing guys.
So we will definitely. I think we always talk about how you shouldn't blitz Mahomes. Obviously, that's the number one thing you don't do as a defense.
Usually
but
a bad idea.
The Vikings are stubborn enough. I think that they will continue to do it.
Sometimes you are who you are, and some defensive coaches will flat out just, hey, we are who we are. We're going to live and die by who we are, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, their defensive coordinator is also Brian Flores, so we know how Brian Flores kind of operates. He's in that Belichick tree. So yeah, it's going to be,
and that's why you heard Byron Murphy say what Byron Murphy said about Travis Kelce.
Please talk trash, more of that, and bring some zero blitzes.
Apparently, we're going to get physical with Travis because no one's ever tried that before, and we're going to talk to him about Taylor Swift because that seems like a good idea to try to piss off the Big Yeti. But sure, go ahead.
Not a good idea. I mean, Jermaine Johnson.
I wish you guys the best of luck.
Last week.
He's just going to shake it off and score a bunch of points.
I knew that reference was coming. So we think. I genuinely am looking for a bounce back from this offensive line this week. I don't know necessarily about it being a drastic difference in the scoreboard, but I do think that the offensive line gets back on track this week, and they have a much better day. 8 touchdowns.
I'm just kidding.
So he was about to eat. He was about to pop off. Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting. It will definitely be an entertaining game. I mean, not a stress-free game, but I think
this should be a fun game. I actually think this is going to be a
good one.
Which means it's going to be super stressful, and we're all going to regret saying.
I think this one's going to be a stressful one, but it'll be fun for anyone who's not a Chiefs or Vikings fan watching.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be stress-free for us. I think it's going to be stressful and a good. And when I say good football game, if you're a fan of either team in a good football game, it's a stressful experience most of the time. So I don't necessarily see them this. Again, this is a talented roster, especially on the offensive side of the ball for Minnesota. So I don't expect this game to be a runaway of any variety. Now, Minnesota could come out and lay an absolute egg, and Kirk could be awful, and then it is. Chiefs could too. We've seen both sides of that this year.
Yeah.
So
some might call this a trap game. Some might call it a trap game.
I don't think, because of how they played and because of what all took place on Sunday and how some of these groups are going to feel about the performances that just took place last week, I don't necessarily think this is going to fall into the traditional trap game just because they didn't blast. If they'd have blown out the Bears and blown out the Jets and then walked into this, then we can talk a little more trap gamey. But they just got pushed to the brink by Zach Wilson. So
yeah. I mean, there's an out. They do have an out, but it's going to be interesting. I'm thinking probably along the lines of like a 30-24 final score. I think the Vikings, they get some offense going, especially late.
You got a cover. You got a cover for the no. You don't. You don't have a cover for the Vikings.
The Chiefs don't cover. Unfortunately, we have to as fans recognize that.
Line's at a 3.5. If you with your score, the Chiefs are covering.
I believe with pretty much every game last year, I think we didn't cover. It was one of those things. But that being said, I think it'll be. I think the Vikings offense will get some stuff going. I think they'll definitely have their moments. I think the Chiefs will vastly bounce back from their offensive performance last week. And in the fourth quarter, I think the defense will put it away pretty handedly, and we'll right off to the sunset, 30-24.
Garbage time points for the Vikings to make it that 30-24, probably.
They might
little garbage time TD, little garbage time field goal.
They might. I think it happens where they're at 21 midway through the third, and then they kick a field goal, and then they're like, "Why did you kick a field goal?" And then that was it.
Okay, fair enough.
It's like,
that's fair.
The Vikings kicked a field goal from their 33, and they're down 7. Why are they doing this? And it's like,
fair enough.
That was it.
On like 4th and a half a yard or something stupid.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That.
It'll be one of those things. It'll be like, Kevin O'Connell, why are you doing this? And then it'll just the whole momentum will change. So
cool. Tom, what you got? Or do you want me to go?
No, I'm.
That was just a big sigh. So if you had a bit more time, I was going to let you have it.
No, I agree that there's going to be some garbage time points. I think I'm going to anticipate a kind of a slower start than what we want from the Chiefs, and then I think they'll put the foot down second quarter. So I'm going to go 36-20. I think it'll be close at halftime, and then I think they'll just. I think
36.
It'll come back to some 36. Very
Get
carefully.
To 30, a bunch of field goals.
Bunch of field goals,
Bunch
I
of
guess.
field
Yeah. Okay. I'm with you. Maybe a couple of 2 points, two pointers in there just to rub it in. Yeah.
36 is my lucky number.
Would that be a scoregami? I wonder. You should predict a scoregami, Kyle.
I doubt it. Gamis are hard to come by anymore.
We were set up for one last week.
Yeah.
Crazy one. It was like 25 to
some goofy number.
12 it would have been or something like crazy. Yeah.
I'm actually, I don't think Vegas is too far off on any of this. They've got the over under, at least at Caesars, of what ESPN has posted, at 52.5, and the line's 3.5 in Kansas City's favor. Now, if you go by traditional rule of thumb with how these lines are put together, some of you may know this, some of you don't. Traditionally, home field is 3 points in the NFL. Traditionally. So that would mean a neutral site game between the Chiefs Vikings. The Chiefs would be roughly a 6.5 point favorite. That's more in line with Garrett's score prediction on that field. I'm leaning probably something like, it's probably, I was going to be really close to Garrett because it was 31-24 was what was in my head, and it's 31-21, and there's 8 minutes left in the first quarter, and they go down and kick a field goal, and you're still down.
I really like that scenario.
What was the point?
Yeah.
Like you, I can 100% see that.
Field goals against the Chiefs, and then,
like you're never getting the ball back. That was that. Well, that was a 7-minute and 57-second drive that they downed at the 1 and decided not to score.
Right.
For the third time this season or whatever. Like I can 100% see that playing out because, as we discussed it in the open, the Vikings are the Chargers of the NFC. Now, do the Chargers play the Chiefs tough a lot? Yes, because they know them more. That's not really the reason why Minnesota will play them tough. But yeah, I just see this game being closer than we would like it to be, and then getting some weird decision making by Minnesota somewhere down the line at the end of the game that makes you go, why did that happen that way? So
yeah, I'd say that's pretty likely. But that will about wrap it up for this episode. Be sure to tune in 3:25 Arrowhead time Sunday.
Yep.
We're gonna see a good game. I expect to see a lot of red in the crowd because that's not too far of a drive for a lot of Kansas Cityans. So
and we're pretty well represented up north. So
yeah, I think we are. We actually really are.
The Vikings have never lost to Mahomes either. It's because they've never played him.
That's boom. It's the only team he hasn't beat besides the Chiefs.
See, I think that's the only team he hasn't played. Also.
Oh yeah, because that was the.
Actually, no, yeah, the team he hasn't played. I think he hasn't beat like the Colts or something crazy.
He hasn't beat the Colts, but he's played them.
No,
he
hasn't. Beat the Colts.
He beat the Colts.
Has he beat the Colts?
I think he's the. I think if he beats the Vikings, he'll be the first. He'll be the fastest.
Last year we beat him.
Oh yeah, yes. I'm reading here. Here, guys, this article right here.
That's the article.
Only one. He didn't play the Vikings because of the knee injury.
Has yet to beat.
Okay.
Knee injury.
Yeah.
Because they lost the Packers and then they beat the Vikings with was that Matt Moore?
Yes, it was.
Yes. Yeah.
So, which I think they should just give Pat Mahomes credit for that, anyways, because it's more
fair.
Yeah, not as embarrassing as admitting that you lost to Matt Moore.
Yeah, I think Harrison Butker ended up with like a 61-yard field goal to win. I think so.
Didn't they win a Super Bowl that year, Tom?
Yeah, they did.
That is Super Bowl champion Matt Moore to you, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's fair.
Yes, sir.
With a win under his belt in the season of the Super Bowl.
Shout out Matt Moore. Shout out Chad Henne, all Super Bowl champions.
I love that.
Matt Moore is a dog. I don't need no Matt Moore slander around here. He's
coaching
probably
high school football, comes in, wins an NFL game, goes back to coaching.
Yeah, he's back to coaching probably, and they're probably winning a state championship as we speak. So,
good luck to Matt Moore's high school team.
So much for tuning in and watching us on this one. Be sure to watch us over on YouTube, The Kingdom Says, and then follow all of our socials at Kingdom Says Pod, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Find us on Apple Music. Find us on Spotify. Find us on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. Watch us on YouTube, and we will see you guys in the next episode of The Kingdom Says.